My name is Brooke Callahan. I'm 30 years old, born and raised in a quiet suburb just outside Indianapolis, Indiana. Last Mother's Day, everything in my life changed in the span of one backyard dinner. My older sister stood up at the long picnic table, glowing like she'd just accepted an Oscar, and announced her third pregnancy to the entire family. My mom, Linda, let out a cheer so loud I swear the neighbors 2 houses down probably heard it through their closed windows. She jumped up, hugged my sister tight, and said with tears in her eyes, "This is everything I ever wanted for our family." She pressed her hands together like God himself had answered a long prayer. Then my dad turned, looked straight at me, and said without hesitation, "You're moving in with them to help." I blinked hard, my fork still halfway to my mouth. "What?" My sister laughed, that light, dismissive laugh she always used when she thought she was being reasonable. "Come on, Brooke, you have nothing major going on anyway. We're basically fixing your life for you." 15 people sat around that table, uncles, aunts, cousins, my brother-in-law, the kids, and not one single person looked uncomfortable. Not one of them said, "Hey, maybe we should ask Brooke first." They just nodded along like it was the most natural decision in the world. I didn't argue in the moment. I simply nodded once, stood up slowly, picked up my purse, and walked straight out the side gate without saying another word. The drive home was silent, no radio, no podcast, just the low hum of my 9-year-old Honda Civic and the sound of my own breathing trying to stay steady. That night I barely slept. The next morning at exactly 7:15, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Good morning, ma'am. This is Officer Ramirez with the Indianapolis Metro Police Department. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're watching or listening right now, take a second to drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're from and what time it is there. I love knowing I'm not alone in these stories. Now, let me take you back to how my family decided my life belonged to them. I grew up in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house on the east side of Indianapolis. My dad, Robert Callahan, worked as an electrician for 28 years until his knees gave out and he took early retirement on disability. My mom, Linda, stayed home and ran our household like a tight ship. Everyone had assigned roles, and she decided exactly what those roles were. My older sister, Lauren, followed the family blueprint perfectly. She got married at 26, had her first baby at 28, her second at 31, and now here she was at 34 announcing baby number 3. She and her husband, Mike, lived just 10 minutes away, and every Sunday she brought the grandkids over like clockwork. In my mother's eyes, Lauren was the gold standard, the finished product. Then there was me. I graduated with a degree in accounting from Purdue University's Indianapolis campus, moved 25 minutes away into a cozy 1-bedroom apartment in Carmel, and landed a solid remote job with a mid-sized auditing firm downtown. I drove that same reliable Civic, ate dinner alone most nights while reviewing spreadsheets, and was 5 months deep into intense study for the CPA exam, the one credential that could completely change my career trajectory and open doors to the Big 4 firms. But none of that seemed to register with my family. Every holiday, the same tired script played out. "So, are you seeing anyone special yet? Still working from home? Must be nice having all that free time." The questions always came wrapped in fake smiles, but the message underneath was crystal clear: "You're behind schedule." Lauren got praised endlessly for giving my mom more grandchildren. I got gentle jabs about when I was finally going to start living. And they never let me forget the $12,000 they helped with for college 8 years ago. My mom brought it up at least once a month, sometimes twice. "I gave you that $12,000 so you could build a real career," she'd say, scanning my apartment like it personally disappointed her. "And this is what you're doing with it?" That $12,000 had become the price tag on my obedience. Mother's Day started normally enough. I showed up at my parents' house at 4 p.m. sharp, carrying a beautiful bouquet of pink peonies from the farmer's market and a homemade lemon pound cake I'd spent 2 hours perfecting, complete with a thick glaze and fresh blueberries on top. Mom took the flowers, barely glanced at them, and set them on the counter next to a pile of junk mail and coupons. Then she pivoted toward the front door because Lauren's minivan had just pulled in. "There she is," Mom called out, arms wide open like she was welcoming a celebrity. Lauren walked in with Mike and the kids, 6-year-old Emma and 3-year-old Lucas. Mom scooped Lucas up like he was made of pure gold. "Look at you, getting so big." She turned to Lauren and cupped her face. "You look absolutely radiant, sweetheart." Radiant. I couldn't remember the last time my mom had looked at me with even half that warmth. At the table I got the worst seat, wedged between Lucas's high chair and the wooden fence. Dad sat at the head like always. Lauren took the center spot right next to Mom. Conversation flowed easily around me, Emma's preschool art show, Mike's buddy's fishing trip up at Lake Monroe, Dad asking about the Pacers' chances this season. When someone finally turned to me, it was Dad with 5 flat words. "You doing all right, Brooke?" "Yeah, Dad. I'm good." He nodded and went back to his potatoes. That was it. Then Lauren caught Mike's eye across the table. They shared a quick, rehearsed look. Something big was coming. She tapped her spoon against her glass. The yard went quiet. "We have an announcement," she said, pressing her palm to her stomach with a glowing smile. "We're expecting baby number 3, 12 weeks along." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. She shot out of her chair and wrapped Lauren in a hug so fast the glasses rattled. She was actually crying. "Oh my God, this is everything I wanted." Dad leaned back, nodding with deep satisfaction, like his retirement plan was finally paying dividends. Mike grinned like he'd just won the lottery. The kids didn't fully get it. Lucas banged his spoon, Emma asked for more bread. Then Dad turned to me again. "You're moving in to help." He didn't ask. He stated it like a done deal, as casual as passing the potato salad. I stared at him, stunned. "What?" Lauren leaned forward, still beaming. "Mike's been swamped at work with overtime. I'm going to need real help with Emma and Lucas once the baby comes. You work from home, so you have the time." She shrugged like it was the most obvious solution in the world. "You have nothing going on anyway. We're fixing your life." She said it with a little laugh, as if everyone at the table wasn't already nodding in agreement like trained seals. I looked at my mom. She was wiping happy tears, completely focused on Lauren. I looked at my dad. He had already gone back to cutting his steak. Not one person asked how I felt about it. So I picked up my napkin, folded it neatly, set it on the table, stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked straight out the gate without a goodbye. "Brooke," my mom called sharply behind me. I didn't turn around. The drive home was dead silent. Inside my apartment, I locked the door, dropped my purse, and slid down to the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, knees pulled up, trying to keep my breathing steady. My phone started blowing up before I even kicked off my shoes, 14 texts from Mom in rapid succession. First came the soft plea, "Brooke, sweetie, come back. We can talk about this." Then the guilt trip, "You just ruined Mother's Day. I hope you're proud of yourself." Then the fake worry, "I'm really concerned about you. Walking out like that isn't normal. Please answer me. You're scaring me." 3 missed calls from Lauren, no voicemail, of course. She never left voicemails, she just expected instant callbacks. 1 text from Mike, "Hey, everything okay over there?" I answered none of them. I powered my phone off, brushed my teeth, and went to bed at 8:30 p.m. on Mother's Day like someone who had officially checked out. I slept hard and dreamless, the kind of sleep your body forces on you when it knows tomorrow is going to hurt. At 7:15 the next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. My gut told me to pick up. "Good morning, ma'am. This is Officer Ramirez with the Indianapolis Metro Police Department. We received a call expressing concern about your well-being. Would you be willing to let me come by and do a quick welfare check?" I sat on the edge of my bed, stomach turning cold. Yes, I said. Come by. Officer Ramirez was polite, mid-40s, calm eyes, clipboard ready. He stood at my door in full uniform and spoke like he'd handled this exact situation many times before in the Indianapolis suburbs. Ma'am, we got a call from a family member saying you left a family gathering abruptly last night and might be experiencing a mental health crisis. They were worried you could be a danger to yourself. I let him inside. He scanned my apartment, dishes drying on the rack, laptop open on the table with my audit files, CPA study guides neatly stacked beside a half-empty Starbucks cold brew mug. It looked like the home of someone who was handling her business, not someone falling apart. Can I ask what happened last night? He said gently, sitting on the edge of my couch. My family announced a plan for my entire life without asking me. I disagreed, so I left. He wrote something down, then looked up. That sounds like a pretty reasonable response to me. We talked for about 10 minutes. He asked the standard questions. Was I sleeping? Eating? Had I had any thoughts of harming myself? I answered clearly and calmly, no to all of it. When he stood to leave, he paused at the door. Ma'am, you seem perfectly fine to me. I'll note that in my report. One more thing. If someone files repeated welfare checks that turn out to be unfounded, there can be legal consequences for the caller. Filing a false report is a misdemeanor in Indiana. He couldn't tell me who called, but he didn't have to. I already knew it was my mom. After he left, I sat at my kitchen table and did what I do best. I ran the numbers like the accountant I am. If I moved in with Lauren, I'd be watching Emma and Lucas at least 3 to 4 hours every day on top of my full-time remote role. That's basically a part-time unpaid job. I couldn't bill 40 hours a week while breaking up toddler fights over crayons or rushing to change diapers during conference calls. I'd miss deadlines, lose the big Q2 audit project my boss had just trusted me with, and fall dangerously behind on CPA prep. The exam window was in October, only 5 months away. That timeline was already tight with late-night study sessions and practice tests. Then there was my lease, 8 months left on my Carmel apartment, with an early termination fee of $1,800 I didn't have sitting around in savings. And now there was an official welfare check on my record. If Mom did this again, it created a pattern that could hurt me in future background checks when I applied to bigger firms like Deloitte or EY. I opened a fresh notepad and started a list, not of things I was willing to give up, but of things I flat out refused to lose: my job, my CPA exam, my apartment, my reputation. For non-negotiables. 3 months earlier I had made the mistake of watching the kids for a full week while Mike was traveling for work. I fell behind on a major deliverable, and my boss had pulled me aside in a Zoom meeting. Brooke, this can't happen again. I went to bat for you on this project. I had promised myself never again. And now my family wasn't asking, they were telling me to hand over everything I'd built so they could avoid daycare costs that ran nearly $4,000 a month for 3 kids in the Indianapolis area. Monday morning I finally turned my phone back on. 27 new messages waited for me. Mom's texts had shifted from fake concern to pure offense. The police said you're fine, so why aren't you answering? Are you punishing me? I raised you. I fed you. I helped pay for your school. And this is the thanks I get? Your sister is pregnant, Brooke. She needs you. Stop being selfish. Lauren's messages were shorter and colder. Seriously, Brooke, grow up. We need to talk about the plan. Mike and I already told the kids Aunt Brooke is coming to stay. Don't embarrass us. Dad called. I picked up out of habit. You made your mother cry all night, he said, voice flat and cold. You'll be at the house Sunday. The whole family's coming, everyone. You'll be there. End of discussion. He never once asked if I was okay after a police officer showed up at my door at 7:15 a.m. because Mom claimed I might hurt myself. Not one of them cared how that felt. They just wanted me back in line. I told him I'd be there. Then I added a 5th line to my list: my dignity. Tuesday evening I tried calling Lauren directly, hoping to reach the person who actually needed the help and end this quietly. She answered with, "Finally. Are you done sulking?" "I'm not moving in, Lauren." "Excuse me? I have a full-time job. I have a lease. I'm studying for the CPA exam. I can't give all that up." "You work from home. You can work from anywhere." "That's not how it works. I have responsibilities. This is my life, I get to decide how I live it." Mom is devastated. "Do you understand what you're doing to this family? Helping is one thing. Being assigned an unpaid full-time nanny job is completely different." She went quiet for 2 seconds, then her tone dropped into something calculated. "We already told Emma and Lucas that Aunt Brooke is moving in. They're so excited. Emma even picked out a welcome card. Are you really going to disappoint them too?" There it was, the kid's card. Not because she cared about my bond with them, but because she knew I did. "Don't use your children to guilt-trip me, Lauren. I'm not guilting you. I'm telling you reality. The reality is you need free childcare and I'm the cheapest option." She hung up on me. 8 minutes later Mom called, already crying. "Are you trying to kill me, Brooke? I haven't slept in 2 days. Mom, you called the police on me." A long pause. "I was worried. You left in the middle of dinner without a word. Any mother would be concerned. You told them I was mentally unstable. An officer showed up and asked if I was a danger to myself. That's not worry, that's a weapon. Don't be dramatic." I held the phone away, took a deep breath, then brought it back. "I left because Dad told me what my life was going to be without asking, and you cheered. Because it's a beautiful thing that my sister needs me. What's wrong with family helping family? What's wrong is that nobody asked. You decided for me." She flipped the script again. "If you don't come Sunday, I'll tell everyone what really happened, that you abandoned us on Mother's Day, that you're ignoring your family, that you refuse to help your pregnant sister. Then tell them whatever you want," I said calmly. "I'll be there Sunday. And I'll have something to say." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but my voice had stayed steady the entire time. Wednesday night I sat at my kitchen table with one sheet of lined paper and wrote down 3 simple facts I needed 15 people to hear. I never agreed to move in. Someone in this family called the police and lied about my mental state. I have been told, not asked, to give up my career, my home, and my independence so my sister can save on childcare. Then I called my Aunt Patricia, Dad's younger sister. She lives alone in a condo in Carmel, teaches high school biology, and has always kept the most distance from the family drama. When I told her everything, the announcement, Dad's order, the welfare check, Mom's threats, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. "They did the exact same thing to me 30 years ago when your parents had Lauren. I was 26, single, working nights as a nurse. They told me to move in and help. I did it. I gave up 3 years of my life. When I finally left, nobody thanked me. Nobody even noticed what I'd sacrificed." She paused, voice thick. "I'll be there Sunday, Brooke. I should have spoken up a long time ago." While I was preparing, Mom and Lauren were busy too. Mom started calling every relative coming to Sunday dinner, laying groundwork. Brooke's been going through a rough patch. She's isolating. She walked out on Mother's Day. Just be gentle with her, she's fragile right now. Lauren took a different approach. She texted several family members directly, "Just a heads up, Brooke has been really weird about my pregnancy. I think she's jealous. Please don't bring up the baby stuff around her. I don't want any drama." My cousin Rachel, Aunt Patricia's daughter, screenshot Lauren's text and sent it to me with 3 words, "Thought you should know." Jealous. My own sister was telling the family I was jealous of her pregnancy. I wasn't jealous. I was being slowly erased, and now they were salting the earth before I could even speak. I folded the paper with my 3 facts, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and texted Rachel back, "Thank you. I'll handle it." Wednesday morning I had an important video meeting with my boss, Linda Marsh. She's 52, runs a tight 12-person auditing firm, and has zero tolerance for excuses. She promoted me to senior associate 6 months earlier, the youngest person ever to hold that title at the company. "I'm assigning you the full Hollowell manufacturing audit," she said, leaning into the camera from her home office in Fishers. "You'll manage the entire engagement from start to finish." Hollowell was our biggest client. Landing lead on that file was career-changing. It came with a strong recommendation letter that could open doors at much larger firms in downtown Indianapolis. "I'm trusting you with this, Brooke. I went to bat for you. I won't let you down," I told her. "I'll be completely locked in for the next 4 months. No distractions." 3 months earlier I couldn't have made that promise honestly. But I had learned my lesson the hard way, and I wasn't going to repeat it. Thursday evening Dad called again. "Your mother and Lauren already set up the spare room at their house. Twin beds made. You can bring your things over Saturday and get settled before Sunday dinner." "Dad, I already told Lauren I'm not moving in." "I'm not asking. That's the problem." He let the silence stretch, the same old trick he'd used since I was a kid. "I paid for part of your education. You helped with $12,000 8 years ago. I've thanked you every single time you've brought it up, which is a lot. Don't get smart with me. I'm being accurate. Sunday. Be there." He hung up. Saturday night my apartment was spotless. I sat at the kitchen table with my CPA binder open but unread, the folded paper in front of me, and my phone face down. Tomorrow I would stand in front of 15 relatives who had already been prepped to see me as fragile, jealous, or unstable. I was terrified I might fold when Mom cried or Dad gave me that heavy silent stare. But I kept reading the last line I had added to my paper, "I am not the backup plan." Sunday arrived. At 12:45 p.m. I pulled into my parents' driveway behind Uncle Frank's silver pickup. The backyard was perfectly staged, 2 long folding tables pushed together, checkered tablecloth from Walmart, potato salad, coleslaw, warm rolls from the bakery, and the grill already smoking with burgers and brats. About 15 people were there. Dad stood at the grill with tongs. Uncle Frank had a beer in hand. Aunt Beth arranged napkins. Lauren sat at the center of the table, one hand resting on her belly. Mike was beside her. Emma drew on a paper plate while Lucas ran circles around the bench. In the far corner, Aunt Patricia sat in a lawn chair with sunglasses on and a glass of iced tea, watching everything. Mom met me before I even reached the table. She pulled me into a tight, performative hug angled so everyone could see. "There's my baby girl. I've been so worried about you." Her voice was loud and bright. Over her shoulder I saw several heads turn. "I'm fine, Mom." "Of course you are." She held my face a second too long, like she was presenting proof to the audience. I smiled politely and sat down. Everyone looked at me with soft, careful eyes, the kind reserved for someone they'd been told was struggling. The food came off the grill. Plates were passed. Small talk floated around, weather, sports, gardens. Then Mom stood up. "Before we eat, I just want to say a few words." She smoothed her blouse and smiled at the group like a proud host. "This family is growing. Lauren and Mike are expecting their third, and we couldn't be happier." Polite applause rippled. Then she turned the spotlight directly on me. "And we're so blessed that Brooke has agreed to move in with Lauren and help with the kids once the baby arrives." She looked at me with a wide, camera-ready smile. "Isn't that right, sweetheart?" Every head at the table turned toward me. 15 pairs of eyes waited. I didn't speak right away. Mom's smile tightened. Lauren jumped in to fill the silence. "She's just shy about it. We already set up the room. She laughed easily. Mike painted it last weekend. Dad, still by the grill, nodded. It's settled. A few people murmured, "That's sweet of you, Brooke." Aunt Beth whispered to Uncle Frank, "She's such a good sister." I looked across at Aunt Patricia. She gave me the smallest, steadiest nod from behind her sunglasses. I pressed my palms flat on the table and stood up. "Can I say something?" Mom smiled expectantly. "Of course, honey." She thought I was about to confirm her version of events. I kept my voice calm and even. "I need everyone here to hear this. Not because I want attention, but because some of you have been told things about me that aren't true." The smiles around the table started to fade at different speeds. Lauren straightened. Mom's hand moved to her collarbone. Dad lowered the tongs. "I'm not going to yell or make a scene, but I need to say 3 things, and I need every person at this table to hear them clearly." I looked at Mom, then Lauren, then Dad, then back to the group. First, I never agreed to move in with Lauren. At Mother's Day dinner, Dad pointed at me and said, "You're moving in to help." Lauren said, "You have nothing going on anyway. We're fixing your life." Nobody asked me. Nobody checked if I had a job, a lease, or any plans of my own. I was simply assigned. I nodded that night, then stood up and walked out. Nodding and leaving is not agreement. It's restraint. The table had gone completely quiet. Uncle Frank raised his eyebrows at Dad. Aunt Beth stopped fussing with napkins. Second, the morning after Mother's Day, at 7:15 a.m., an officer from the Indianapolis Metro Police Department showed up at my apartment for a welfare check. Someone in this family called and told the police I was mentally unstable and might be a danger to myself. Gasps rippled around the table. Uncle Frank set his beer down hard. Aunt Beth turned to Mom. "Linda, is that true?" Mom's face went pale. I was worried. She walked out without saying anything. "I am not mentally unstable," I continued. "I am not in crisis. I left a dinner where my family decided my entire future without asking me." That is a reasonable reaction. The officer agreed. He also told me that filing repeated false welfare checks can lead to legal consequences in Indiana. Aunt Patricia spoke for the first time. I believe her. The energy in the yard had completely shifted. Third, I turned to Lauren. "You sent a text to several family members this week telling them not to mention your pregnancy around me because, and I'm quoting, Brooke has been really weird about my pregnancy. I think she's jealous." Lauren's face went rigid. Her eyes flicked toward Rachel. "You weren't protecting me," I said. "You were trying to pre-frame me so that when I stood up and spoke the truth, no one would believe me. I am not jealous of your pregnancy. I am happy for you. But I am not your free nanny. I am not your backup plan. And I am not broken because I live alone and don't have children yet." My voice stayed steady the entire time. Aunt Patricia gave me another firm nod across the table. Aunt Beth whispered, "Jesus Christ." Then Aunt Patricia stood up slowly. She placed both hands on the table and spoke with a quiet power I had never heard from her before. "I need to say something, and I should have said it 30 years ago. When your parents had Lauren, this family did the exact same thing to me. I was 26, single, working night shifts as a nurse. They told me to move in and help, and I did. I gave up my apartment. I delayed my certification. I spent 3 years raising someone else's child while my own life stood still. When I finally left, nobody thanked me. Nobody even noticed what I had sacrificed. I was treated like furniture." She looked straight at me. "Don't make my mistake, Brooke. Say no while you still can." The math in the yard had changed. Not everyone was on my side yet, but the room no longer belonged to Mom and Dad. It belonged to the truth. Mom stood up, tears flowing. "I just wanted this family to stay together." "Is that so terrible?" Worrying about someone means asking how they are, I said gently, not calling the police when they don't answer your texts. Lauren finally cracked. She stood up, voice sharp. Fine. You want the truth. Mike got his hours cut. Daycare for 3 kids is almost $4,000 a month. We can't afford it. That's why we need you. The number hung heavy in the air. A few relatives shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry about your situation, I said. I really am. But the answer to your financial problem is not to take away my career so you can save on childcare. I work 40 hours a week. I'm studying for a major professional exam. I manage important client accounts. I don't have free time. I have a life you've never bothered to understand. Mike, who had stayed silent the whole time, finally spoke. She's right. I told you from the beginning this should have been a conversation, not a plan. We made her feel like she had no choice. That wasn't okay. Lauren stared at her husband like he had betrayed her. I stayed standing. Here's what I am willing to do, I will babysit once a month if I'm asked ahead of time and it doesn't conflict with my work. That's the help I'm offering. I will not move in. I will not give up my apartment or my CPA studies. I will not sacrifice my job. And if anyone files another false police report on me, I will take formal action. Nobody argued. For the first time in my life, my family heard me and had nothing left to say. I walked over to where Emma and Lucas were sitting, still oblivious to the tension. I crouched down, kissed Emma on the forehead, and told her butterfly drawing was beautiful. Lucas looked up with big eyes. Aunt Brooke, are you coming to live with us? I smoothed his hair gently. No, sweetie, but I'll come visit you. I promise. Kids accept boundaries so much easier than adults. I stood and looked at Lauren. I love your kids and I love you, but I can't be what you need me to be right now. I hope one day you understand that. I turned to my parents. I love you both, but love doesn't mean obedience. It never did. I picked up my purse, put on my jacket, and walked toward the gate. Aunt Patricia met me at my car and pulled me into a tight, steady hug. You did good, kid. I'm proud of you. I drove home with the windows down, warm Indiana air filling the car, radio off, hands steady on the wheel. I didn't cry. I just breathed. The first week after that Sunday was the quietest my phone had been in years. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't call. Lauren blocked me on every platform, Instagram, Facebook, even Venmo. Total digital silence meant to punish me. Instead, it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a long time. Aunt Patricia called every evening for quick, warm check-ins. Rachel texted almost daily with memes, articles about boundaries, and simple, just checking in, messages. Uncle Frank called on Thursday. I didn't know about the police thing. That wasn't right. At work, I threw myself into the Hollowell audit. I submitted the preliminary engagement letter to Linda ahead of schedule. She was impressed. Best work I've seen from you yet, Brooke. My name is Brooke Callahan. I'm 30 years old, and 2 years ago, my dad disowned me by text message 14 hours before I walked down the aisle. My phone buzzed with 6 words from my father, "You are no longer my daughter." And then my mother, my brother, and 3 of my aunts all backed him up. Every single one of them. Because I wouldn't add 4 names to my guest list. 4 names. 4 kids I'd met a handful of times. That's all it took to lose my entire family overnight. But here's the part that kept me up at 3 o'clock in the morning 2 years later. My father didn't come back because he missed me. He came back because he needed my signature on one document. And when I wrote back 4 words, his entire retirement plan fell apart. Before I take you back to that night, please take a moment to hit like and subscribe. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are listening from. Now, let me take you back to a Friday evening in September, the night before my wedding, and the last time I heard my father's voice for 2 years. But first, I need to tell you about my grandmother. Ruth Callahan was the kind of woman who kept a jar of butterscotch candies on her kitchen counter and called everyone sweetheart, even the mailman. She lived alone in a little Cape Cod house outside Zanesville, Ohio, with a garden that produced more tomatoes than any one person could eat. And she gave the extras away in brown paper bags with handwritten notes tucked inside. She was the only person in my family who never made love feel like a transaction. When I was 27, Grandma Ruth got diagnosed with lung cancer. Stage 4. They found it late. She'd been coughing for months, but kept saying it was just the dust from her garden. By the time I drove down to see her, she was already on oxygen, sitting in her recliner with a blanket over her knees, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I stayed 3 weeks, slept on her couch, cooked her soups she barely touched. One afternoon, this was maybe 4 days before she passed, she grabbed my hand and squeezed it harder than I thought she had left in her. "I set something aside for you," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you it belongs to them." I didn't understand. I thought she meant the house or maybe her rings. I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. She died on a Thursday morning in March. I was holding her hand. It wasn't until 2 years later, 2 years after my wedding, 2 years after that text message, that I finally understood what she meant. Grandma Ruth had named me as the sole beneficiary on her retirement account. Not my father, not my uncle, me. And that one decision she made would change everything. My parents divorced when I was 14. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no thrown dishes, just my mother sitting at the kitchen table one morning telling me and my brother Kyle that Dad was moving into an apartment across town. Kyle cried. I didn't. I just ate my cereal and went to school. My father wasn't a bad dad back then. He was strict. The kind of man who expected a firm handshake and a yes sir. But he showed up. He came to my volleyball games. He helped me with algebra even though he hated math. He drove me to Grandma Ruth's every other weekend without complaining. Gary Callahan was a decent father, just not a flexible one. Then he met Jolene. I was 20 when he brought her to Thanksgiving. She was 10 years younger with a big laugh and 4 kids from her first marriage, Cody, Amber, Tyler, and Lily, ages 10, 7, 5, and 3. They tumbled out of her minivan like a circus act. And just like that, my father had a whole new family. Things shifted fast. Dad started calling Jolene's kids my kids. He wanted me to call them my siblings. He expected birthday cards, Christmas presents, Sunday dinners together, and I did it. Every time he asked, I said yes. I drove 2 hours for Amber's ballet recital. I bought Tyler a skateboard I couldn't afford. I babysat Lily 3 weekends in a row so Dad and Jolene could go to Myrtle Beach. And every time I said yes, my father wrote it down in some invisible ledger as proof that I would always say yes. He never once asked if I wanted to. He just assumed I would. And for 9 years, he was right. Jolene was smart about it. I'll give her that. She never confronted me directly. Not at first. She worked through my father, feeding him small complaints that built up over the years like sediment. I missed Cody's high school graduation party because I had a work deadline. Jolene told my dad I didn't think her kids were important enough. I forgot to comment on a family photo she posted on Facebook. All 6 of them on a porch swing. No me anywhere in the frame. She told my dad I was rejecting the family. Every missed event, every delayed text, every time I chose something in my own life over one of her expectations, Jolene collected them. She kept a running tally of slights that only existed in her head, and she presented them to my father like evidence. Your daughter doesn't accept our family, she told him. I know because he called me and repeated it word for word, his voice flat and hard. Dad, that's not true. I just had to work. Jolene is my wife. Her kids are my kids now. If you can't accept that, we have a problem. I do accept it. I just can't be at every single one. You don't get to pick which parts of this family you belong to, Brooke. And there it was. The ultimatum that had been building for years, finally said out loud. In my father's mind, loyalty was binary. All in or all out. There was no middle ground, no room for a 30-year-old woman with her own job and her own life to set reasonable limits. I should have seen what was coming. But I kept believing that if I was reasonable enough, he'd be reasonable back. That was my mistake. I kept expecting fairness from someone who only understood control. Marcus and I got engaged in June. We planned a small wedding, 60 guests, a farm-to-table restaurant outside Columbus. Everything paid for out of our own savings. No help from anyone. Our guest list was tight, 30 from Marcus's side, 30 from mine, and every seat accounted for. 3 weeks before the wedding, my father called. You need to add Jolene's kids to the list. I was sitting at my desk at work, a spreadsheet open on my screen. I closed my eyes. Dad, the venue is full. 60 seats. They're all taken. Then cut someone. I'm not cutting Marcus's cousins to add 4 people I've met 6 times in 10 years. Those are your stepkids, and I offered to invite them to the after-party. An after-party? Like they're not good enough for the real thing. That's not what I said. It's what you meant, Brooke. Marcus and I are paying for this ourselves. Every dollar. I planned this for a year. The seating chart is done. The caterer is locked in. Either all of them come or I don't come. Silence. I let it sit for 5 seconds, then 10. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said. He hung up. That was a Thursday evening. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the windshield. I told myself he'd cool down. He always made threats when he was angry, and he always walked them back. This would be the same. He'd call tomorrow, grumble a little, and show up at the wedding in his navy suit. By Friday morning, I had 6 words on my screen that I will never forget. I'm going to pause here for a second because I know some of you are already typing. You're thinking, just add them, Brooke. It's 4 seats. Keep the peace. And I understand that. I really do, because that's exactly what I told myself for 10 years. If you've ever been the one who always gives in to keep your family together, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is the moment I stopped. Let me keep going. Friday morning, September 14th, 14 hours before my wedding. I was standing in Marcus's bathroom in my robe, holding my dress on a hanger against my chest, checking the hem one last time. My phone was on the counter. It buzzed once. I glanced down. Dad. 6 words. No greeting, no preamble, no phone call. You are no longer my daughter. I read it twice, then a third time. I kept waiting for a follow-up. Just kidding, call me. The screen stayed dark. I sat down on the tile floor. The dress was still in my hands, the satin bunching against my knees. I could feel the cold of the grout through my robe. I didn't cry. I just sat there thinking. He didn't even call. 31 years. And he couldn't pick up the phone. He typed 6 words, hit send, and went on with his morning. Marcus found me 20 minutes later. He opened the door, saw me on the floor, and his face changed. He didn't ask. He just sat down beside me, took my phone, and read the screen. He stared at it for a long time. Then he set it face down on the counter and put his arm around me. We don't have to do anything about this today, he said. I know. We're getting married tomorrow. I know. And he's going to have to live with this. I leaned into him and closed my eyes. The bathroom smelled like tile cleaner and Marcus's soap. Outside the window, I could hear a neighbor's sprinkler clicking back and forth. Somewhere across town, my father was probably eating breakfast. And then my phone started buzzing again. Not him, everyone else. The messages came in a chain, one after another, like someone had sent out a group signal. First, my mother, Brooke, your father has a point. You should apologize before it's too late. Then Kyle, my 24-year-old brother who still lived in my father's basement, way to ruin everything, sis. Then Aunt Patty, you've always been selfish, Brooke. Even as a little girl. Aunt Linda, Jolene's kids are family now, whether you like it or not. And finally, Aunt Brenda, who sent a disappointed face emoji, followed by 7 words that hit harder than all the rest, your grandmother would be ashamed of you. I sat on that bathroom floor and read every single one. Nobody called. Nobody asked for my side. Nobody said, wait, what actually happened? They just lined up behind my father like they'd rehearsed it. Marcus watched my face as I scrolled. Who's texting? Everyone. What are they saying? I handed him the phone. He read through the messages, his jaw tightening with each one. Not one of them asked you what happened. No, not one. I took the phone back. I opened my screenshots folder and saved every message. My father's, my mother's, Kyle's, all 3 aunts, one by one, methodical, the way I file receipts at work. Then I powered off my phone, set it in the nightstand drawer, and closed it. I'm going to take a shower, I said. And then I'm going to try on my dress one more time. Marcus nodded. Aunt Brenda had invoked my grandmother to shame me. She had no idea that Grandma Ruth was the one person in this family who would have driven 3 hours to walk me down that aisle herself. The wedding was beautiful. I need you to know that. The restaurant had string lights draped across the patio and wildflower arrangements in mason jars. The weather held, 72 degrees, clear sky. The kind of September evening that makes you believe the universe is paying attention. Marcus's side filled up fast. His parents, his sister, cousins, college friends, co-workers, 30 seats, everyone taken. My side had the caterer, my college roommate Bria, 2 friends from work, and silence. 6 chairs sat empty at the table reserved for my family. White napkins folded into fans. Water glasses filled to the brim. Place cards with names nobody would answer to, Gary, Diane, Kyle, Patty, Linda, Brenda. The restaurant manager came over halfway through cocktail hour. Should we clear the empty settings? Marcus looked at the table, then at me. Leave it, he said. Someone should see it. I didn't argue. He was right. Those empty chairs said more than any speech could. Richard Webb, Marcus's father, a retired estate lawyer with kind eyes and a firm handshake, walked over to me before the ceremony. I hadn't asked anyone. I'd planned to walk alone. I'd be honored, he said, if you'd let me walk with you. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He offered his arm and we walked down that aisle together, past Marcus's family, past my empty chairs, past the place cards that would go home untouched. I danced the first dance with Marcus to a song Grandma Ruth used to hum when she watered her garden. I didn't tell anyone that. It was just for me and her. At the end of the night, Marcus pulled me close. You didn't lose a family tonight, he said. They lost you. We didn't talk about my father again for 2 years. And then one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. I should back up because there's a piece I haven't told you yet. The phone call that happened before my father's text. The one that lit the fuse. Thursday night, about an hour before my dad sent those 6 words, my phone rang. It was Jolene. She never called me. In 11 years, I could count our one-on-one conversations on one hand. So when I saw her name on the screen, my stomach dropped. Brooke, we need to talk about tomorrow. Jolene, the rehearsal dinner is at 6. You and Dad are. My kids are crying because they weren't invited to your wedding. They were invited to the after party. I explained that to Dad. An after party? Like they're second class. The venue only holds 60. Every seat is accounted for. Then move people around. Cut one of your little friends. Jolene, I'm not rearranging my wedding the night before. Then I'll tell your father exactly how you feel about his family. She said it the way someone lays down a winning card. Calm, final, like she'd been holding it for years. That's not what I said. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. 6 words from my father. Jolene had taken our conversation and repackaged it. She didn't tell him I'd offered the after-party. She didn't tell him about the 60-seat limit. She told him his daughter said his new family was second class. She handed him a grenade and let him pull the pin. And he did, without calling me first, without asking what actually happened. He chose Jolene's version over a 30-second phone call to his own daughter. That's the part one keep coming back to. He didn't even check. After my father's text, the first person I called was my mother. I know you'd think I'd have learned by then, but there's something hardwired in you, no matter how old you are, that makes you reach for your mom when the ground gives out. The phone rang twice. Mom, Dad just disowned me. By text message. A pause. I heard her exhale. Honey, can't you just add them? It's one day. Mom, he said I'm no longer his daughter. He's upset. He'll come around, but you need to apologize first. Apologize for what? For making this harder than it needs to be. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it like the screen might rearrange itself into something that made sense. Mom, my wedding is tomorrow. He disowned me over 4 seats. It's not about the seats, Brooke. It's about respect. Respect for who? Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear the TV on in the background. Some game show. Audience applause. She hadn't even muted it. Your father helps me with certain things, she said carefully. My insurance, some bills. I can't afford to. She stopped. But I heard it. The sentence she didn't finish landed harder than the one she did. My mother chose her health insurance over her daughter. I don't say that to be cruel. I say it because it's what happened. She ran the numbers in her head. What she'd lose if she stood up for me versus what it cost to stay quiet. And she picked the cheaper option. I hope you can live with that, Mom. Brooke, don't be dramatic. I hung up and I didn't call her again for 730 days. Kyle called 20 minutes after my mother. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. Some part of me still hoped my little brother would surprise me. Brooke, just do what Dad says. You're making everyone miserable. Did you read what he sent me, Kyle? Yeah, but you know how he is. Just apologize and move on. He disowned me. He's bluffing. Just say sorry and this all goes away. I have nothing to apologize for. Then I guess you're on your own. He hung up. 26 years old, living in Dad's house, driving a truck my father co-signed. I couldn't expect him to bite the hand that paid his rent, but hearing it still left a mark. The aunts came as a group text. Patty, Linda, and Brenda, my mother's sisters. They'd heard Diane's version of the story, which was Gary's version, which was Jolene's version, which bore almost no resemblance to anything that actually happened. In their minds, Brooke was a spoiled brat who refused to let innocent children attend a family wedding because she didn't like her father's new wife. That was the narrative. Clean, simple, and completely wrong. Nobody asked me. Nobody said, hey, what's your side? They just picked up their phones and piled on. I sat on the edge of Marcus's bed, reading message after message, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, something quieter. The realization that this family had never once required the full story before passing judgment. The speed of it told me everything. They'd been waiting for a reason to confirm what they already believed about me. I set down the phone and looked at Marcus. I'm getting married tomorrow, I said. That's the only thing that matters right now. I walked down that aisle the next day with my head up and I didn't look back for 730 days. 2 years went by. I want to tell you they were dramatic, but they weren't. They were quiet. And the quiet was the best part. Marcus and I bought a small house in Westerville. 3 bedrooms, a fenced backyard, a kitchen with enough counter space for me to actually cook. I got promoted to senior accountant at the distribution company where I'd worked since college. Marcus picked up a supervisor role at his HVAC firm. We saved, we built, and then Nora came, born on a Wednesday in April with her father's dark eyes and a scream that could rattle windows. I held her against my chest in the delivery room and whispered, "Nobody is going to put conditions on loving you." During those 2 years, I didn't contact my father. I didn't block him. Blocking felt like an act, and I was done performing. I just stopped responding. If he'd called to apologize, I would have listened. He never did. My mother sent 2 text messages in 24 months. Both said, "Thinking of you." Neither mentioned the wedding, the disowning, or the word sorry. I read them and closed the app. I started therapy 6 months after the wedding. My therapist, Dr. Adler, asked me during one session, "What would it take for you to reconnect with your family?" I thought for a long time. An apology that doesn't start with, "but." She nodded and wrote something down. One other thing happened during those 2 years. A letter arrived from a financial management firm. An annual statement for an inherited IRA account in Grandma Ruth's name. Beneficiary, Brooke Callahan. I read it, filed it in my cabinet under important, and went back to changing Nora's diaper. I didn't give it another thought. Not then. It came up over dinner at the Webb's house, the way important things sometimes do, casually, between bites of pot roast. Marcus's parents had us over every other Sunday. Richard would grill or roast something. Patricia would set the table with real napkins, and we'd eat in their dining room with Nora in a high chair between us, mashing peas with her fist. I mentioned the letter offhand. Got another statement from Grandma Ruth's retirement account. The one where I'm listed as the beneficiary. Richard set down his fork. Inherited IRA? I think so. It comes once a year. I just file it. Brooke, do you know what that means legally? Not really. I assumed it was just a formality until the estate settles. Richard leaned back. He'd spent 30 years in estate and real estate law before retiring. And when he shifted into that mode, slower speech, precise words, you paid attention. An inherited IRA with a named beneficiary, that's you, can't be redirected without your written consent. It doesn't go through probate. It doesn't belong to the estate. It belongs to you directly the moment the account holder passed. So my dad can't touch it. Not without your signature. If he was counting on that money for his retirement, he has a problem he can't solve without you. I stared at my plate. Why would he be counting on it? Grandma left it to me. Richard picked up his fork and cut a piece of meat. Because some people assume family means, eventually mine. I let it sit, filed the information the same way I filed the statement, under important. In the back of my mind. I didn't think about that conversation again until my father called. It was a Tuesday, 2:30 in the afternoon. Nora was in her high chair working on a bowl of mashed banana with more enthusiasm than accuracy. I was wiping the counter when my phone lit up on the table. Gary Callahan. I froze. My hands stopped mid-wipe. Banana smeared on the sponge. The phone rang 4 times. I watched it until it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the notification popped up. I pressed play and held the phone to my ear. Hey, Brookie. His voice was warm, almost gentle. He hadn't called me Brookie since I was in high school. It's Dad. I've been thinking a lot lately about you, about everything. I miss you, sweetheart. I'd really love to talk. Give me a call when you get a chance. I played it twice. Then I set the phone on the counter and looked at Nora. She had banana in her eyebrow. Marcus came home at 5:30. I played him the voicemail while he unlaced his boots. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to know why now. You think something happened? My father went 730 days without calling me. He didn't call when Nora was born. He didn't call on my birthday. He didn't call on Grandma Ruth's anniversary. And now out of nowhere, he misses me. Marcus pulled off his second boot and set it by the door. Could be genuine, he said. Could be. But you don't think so? I shook my head. Genuine people don't wait 2 years and then use your childhood nickname. I didn't call back. I didn't text. I just waited. 3 days later he called again. And this time he mentioned a document. This time I picked up. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear him say it out loud. Brookie, I'm so glad you answered. Hi, Dad. Listen, I want to make things right. I've had a lot of time to think and I know I handled the wedding wrong. I do. I leaned against the kitchen counter and said nothing. Let him fill the silence. And look, there's a small paperwork thing from Grandma's estate. Just a signature real quick. Nothing complicated. The lawyer says you need to sign off on something. There it was. Tucked in right after, I want to make things right. Like a PS on a greeting card. What paperwork? Something with her retirement account. It's just a formality. Which retirement account? The IRA. You're listed on it. The lawyer just needs your signature to move things along. Move things along to where, Dad? A pause. I could hear him recalibrating, choosing his words. To get it squared away. For the family. For the family. There it was again. That word used like a skeleton key to unlock whatever he wanted. I'll think about it, I said. Great. That's great, Brookie. And we should get together. I'd love to meet Marcus properly. And I heard about the baby. You heard? Kyle mentioned it. Her name is Nora. She's 6 months old. Silence. That's a beautiful name, he said. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Nora was napping in the next room and the house was perfectly quiet. He didn't call because he missed me. He called because he needed my name on a piece of paper. And the warmth in his voice, the Brookie, the sweetheart, was just the packaging. Within a week, my phone lit up like a switchboard. Jolene texted first, a long message carefully crafted, the kind that gets drafted and redrafted before sending. Brooke, I know we've had our differences, but I truly believe families should find a way back to each other. We all made mistakes. I'd love for the kids to meet baby Nora. Can we start fresh? I read it twice, looking for the word, sorry. It wasn't there. Then my mother called. Diane hadn't called me in 2 years, and now her voice was bright, almost cheerful. Isn't it wonderful that your father's reaching out? This is your chance to fix things, sweetheart. He mentioned a document, Mom. Well, I'm sure that's just a small thing. The important part is he wants to reconnect. Did he ask you to call me? Pause. Brooke, don't be like that. Aunt Patty mailed a Hallmark card, the kind with a sunrise on the front and a pre-printed message about forgiveness. She wrote inside, life is too short for grudges. Love, Patty. Kyle texted, Dad's been really down, sis. He just wants to see his granddaughter. Can you cut him some slack? I sat on the couch and scrolled through every message, every voicemail, every card. And I noticed something. They'd all reached out within the same 7-day window. Jolene on Monday, Mom on Wednesday, Patty's card arrived Thursday, Kyle on Friday. This wasn't organic. Someone had made calls, coordinated timing, assigned roles. This was a campaign. And not one of them, not a single person in that entire orchestrated effort mentioned the document. They wanted me soft and grateful and ready to sign before I even knew what I was signing. I put my phone in a drawer and went to play with my daughter. The next Sunday at the Webb's house, I brought the annual IRA statement and spread it on the dining table after dessert. "Richard, I need your help understanding something." He put on his reading glasses and studied the document. Patricia took Nora to the living room. Marcus sat beside me. "This is a substantial account," Richard said, looking up over his glasses. "Your grandmother was diligent. How much are we talking about?" "Based on this statement, around $280,000, give or take market fluctuation." The number landed in my chest like a stone. "And my dad wants me to sign it over to him." "That would be my guess. If he's asking about a formality or a signature, he likely wants you to disclaim your beneficiary status so the funds route to the contingent beneficiary, which is almost certainly him." "Can he force me?" "No. You're the primary beneficiary. Your grandmother designated you specifically. Without your signature, that designation stands." "What happens to his retirement plan if I don't sign?" Richard folded his hands over the statement. "If your father structured his retirement around accessing these funds, and based on the timeline and his age, I'd wager he did, then without this money, his numbers don't work. He'd face mandatory distribution rules, potential tax penalties, and a significant shortfall. His retirement timeline collapses." Marcus exhaled. "He planned his whole retirement around money that was never his." Richard nodded. "He assumed Brooke would hand it over when asked, because she always had." I stared at the numbers on the page. $280,000. My grandmother's life savings left to me. Not because I asked, but because she knew. She knew that one day I'd need it to be mine, not theirs. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let my father come to Nora's first birthday party. I told myself I was giving him a chance. Maybe I was testing him. Maybe I just wanted to see if he could walk through my front door and be a grandfather without an agenda. 15 friends and Marcus's family. Balloons on the mailbox. A sheet cake from the bakery down the street with Nora's name and pink frosting. It was supposed to be simple. They arrived together. All of them. Gary, Jolene, my mother, Kyle, even the 3 aunts. Like a delegation. Jolene brought a gift bag the size of a suitcase. My mother hugged me at the door and whispered, "I'm so glad we're doing this." The first hour went fine. Gary held Nora awkwardly, like someone handling a product he'd read about but never used. Jolene took photos. Kyle ate 3 slices of cake. The aunts hovered near the drink table, chatting with Marcus's sister. Then, just before we cut the cake, my father stood up. He tapped his plastic cup with a fork. The yard got quiet. "I just want to say how proud I am of my daughter," he began. His voice carried. "And how grateful I am that we can all be here together today. Family is everything." Jolene nodded. My mother pressed a tissue to her eye. The aunts smiled. "I believe in second chances," he continued. "And I hope today is a new beginning for all of us, our whole family together." He looked at me across the table. "Brooke, I know you'll do the right thing." A few of Marcus's friends clapped, confused. They didn't know what was happening. I did. He reached into his sport coat and pulled out a manila envelope. He laid it on the table in front of me, right next to the cake knife and the stack of pastel napkins. "Just a quick signature, sweetheart. Then we can all move forward." Every set of eyes in that yard turned to me. Marcus's friends, his coworkers, his parents, people who had no idea what was inside that envelope. They just saw a father handing his daughter something important and they waited. I looked at the envelope, then at my father, then at Nora, balanced on Marcus's hip, reaching for a balloon string. My father's expression was warm, confident. He'd staged this perfectly, a public moment, surrounded by witnesses wrapped in the language of forgiveness. He believed I wouldn't say no in front of all these people. He'd counted on it. "Not here," I said. My voice was steady. "Not today. This is my daughter's birthday. Gary smiled and picked up the envelope. Of course, sure. We'll set up a meeting. He said it like it was nothing. A minor delay, a rain check. But I watched Jolene's face and her mask slipped for half a second. She leaned toward my mother and whispered just loud enough, "I told you she'd stall." I heard every word. I didn't react. I picked up the cake knife, sliced Nora's birthday cake into even squares, and served every person at that table a piece, including my father. "Cake," I said, holding out his plate. He took it. He had no choice. Marcus caught my eye across the yard. He gave me the smallest nod, the kind that said everything without a syllable. The rest of the party went on. Nora smashed cake in her hair. People sang. And that manila envelope sat in my father's jacket like a grenade that didn't go off. "Right now, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever had someone in your family use a celebration, a birthday, a holiday, a gathering to ambush you with their agenda, type, 'been there,' in the comments because I need to know I'm not the only one. And if this story is hitting close to home, please share it with someone who needs to hear it." Now, let me tell you what I did next. The party ended at 4 o'clock. By 4:30, everyone was gone. Marcus put Nora down for a nap. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and pulled up the photo I'd taken of the document inside that envelope. I'd snapped it when my father went to the bathroom right before he left. Sunday morning, I drove to Richard's house with the photo on my screen. He studied it at his desk, reading glasses low on his nose, coffee going cold beside his elbow. "It's a beneficiary disclaimer," he said. "If you sign this, you voluntarily relinquish your status as primary beneficiary on Ruth's inherited IRA. The funds would then pass to the contingent beneficiary, your father." I sat down in the chair across from him. "So if I sign, he gets the full $280,000. Correct. He'd roll it into his own retirement plan and use it to fund his early retirement. Based on what you've told me about his age and timeline, this is the centerpiece of his financial plan. And if I don't sign, the money stays designated to you. He can't access it. He can't redirect it. He has no legal mechanism to force your hand." "What happens to his retirement?" Richard took off his glasses and set them on the desk. "The IRA he's been counting on doesn't exist for him. If he tries to access the funds through other means, he'll face mandatory distribution taxes and early withdrawal penalties. His retirement timeline collapses. We're talking years of additional work." I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. "He built his entire retirement on money my grandmother left to me," I said, without ever asking me. "That's exactly what he did. And then he disowned you." Richard just looked at me. He didn't need to say anything else. "I didn't decide right away. I want you to know that." I went home and sat with it for 3 days. I replayed the arguments in my head, the ones for signing and the ones against. If I signed, my father would get the money and disappear again. The reconciliation, the birthday party, the "I miss you" voicemails, all of it would evaporate the second his pen hit the deposit slip. But he'd leave me alone. The pressure would stop. If I didn't sign, I'd be the reason his retirement fell apart. That's how they'd frame it. Not, "Gary planned his future around money that wasn't his." It would be, "Brooke punished her own father." I sat on the back porch after Nora went to sleep. Marcus brought me a cup of tea and sat in the other chair. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you," he said. "I know. No pressure from me. I know that, too." He went inside. I stayed out watching the fireflies blink in the yard. I thought about Grandma Ruth's hand squeezing mine. "Don't let anyone tell you it belongs to them." I thought about 6 words on a screen. 730 days of nothing. A manila envelope laid next to my daughter's birthday cake. And I thought about 29 years of saying yes. 29 years of showing up, driving 2 hours, buying gifts I couldn't afford, rearranging my life so my father could feel like he was in charge. And the one time I said no. One time he erased me with a text message. I finished my tea. I'm not signing, I said to the empty yard. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to stop being the person everyone counted on to fold. My father set up the meeting for a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. His lawyer's office in downtown Lancaster, a squat brick building with a parking lot full of pickup trucks and a receptionist who looked like she'd been there since the Carter administration. Gary called me the night before to confirm. Just a quick meeting, 30 minutes, then we'll go to lunch. I'll let you know, I said. Thursday morning, 10 o'clock. I was at home. Nora was in her bouncer kicking at a stuffed giraffe. Marcus was at work. The coffee maker beeped. I poured a cup and sat down. My phone buzzed at 10:05. Gary, we're here. Where are you? I took a sip of coffee, set the phone face down. 10:10, another buzz. Gary, Brooke? 10:15, a call. I let it go to voicemail. 10:18, Jolene texting, your father is sitting here waiting for you. Don't do this. 10:20, Gary again, we're all waiting for you. I could picture it, the three of them in that small conference room. My father in his good shirt. Jolene with her purse on her lap and her jaw set. The lawyer with the documents fanned out on the table, a pen placed precisely beside the signature line. They'd rehearsed this. They'd driven 40 minutes. They'd blocked out the morning. And they were waiting for me to walk through the door because in their version of this story, I always walk through the door. I picked up my phone. My father was sitting in a lawyer's office staring at his screen, fully confident that his daughter would show up because she always had, because she always folded, because she was Brooke. And Brooke said yes. I opened the text thread and started typing 4 words, I am not signing. I hit send, set the phone on the counter, and went back to my coffee. In that conference room 40 minutes away, my father's phone buzzed. I know what happened next because Kyle told me later, not to help me, but because he couldn't keep it inside. Gary read the message. His face didn't change at first. He just stared at the screen like it was in a language he didn't recognize. Jolene leaned over. What did she say? He turned the phone toward her. She read it, then looked at the lawyer, then back at Gary. That's it, she said. 4 words. The lawyer glanced at the screen, closed the folder on the table, and clicked his pen shut. Without her signature, Mr. Callahan, we can't proceed. The beneficiary designation stands. Gary called me. I didn't answer. He called again. Voicemail. A 3rd time. Voicemail, then a text, Brooke, please. This is serious. I read it while Nora chewed on a teething ring in my lap. I set the phone down, didn't reply. He sent 3 more messages over the next hour, each one a little more desperate than the last. Can we at least talk about this? I'm your father, Brooke. You're going to regret this. I didn't respond to any of them. He disowned me in 6 words. I answered in 4, and I think that was more than generous. Marcus came home that evening and found me on the couch, Nora asleep on my chest. Did you go? He asked. No. Did you tell him? 4 words. He sat down next to me and put his hand on my knee. How do you feel? I looked down at Nora, her tiny fist curled around my collar. Done, I said. I feel done. The fallout was financial, mechanical, and immediate. Gary's lawyer explained it to him that same afternoon. Kyle told me this 2 months later in a conversation I'll get to. Without my signature, the inherited IRA remained in my name. Gary couldn't access the funds, couldn't reroute them, couldn't appeal. The beneficiary designation was ironclad. Grandma Ruth had made sure of that. Gary had planned to retire at 60. He was 58. His plan was simple, combined Social Security, a small pension from the factory, and the IRA, roughly $280,000 to cover his living expenses from 60 onward. Without the IRA, the math broke. Not bent, broke. His lawyer told him he'd need to work at least 7 more years to replace the shortfall. 7 years at a factory that had already cut his hours once. 7 years at 58 with bad knees and a back that cracked every morning. He went back to work the following Monday, not to his old position that had been filled. He took a line supervisor role, lower pay, longer hours, reporting to a man 15 years younger. Jolene didn't take it well. She'd married Gary with a certain understanding of what their future would look like: early retirement, travel, a slower pace. That future now had a 7-year delay stapled to it. "Can't we sue?" she asked the lawyer. Kyle said the lawyer didn't even pause. Sue for what? The account was never his. 5 words that matched the weight of my 4. That evening, according to Kyle, Gary sat in his truck in the driveway for 45 minutes. Engine off. Didn't come inside. Jolene watched from the kitchen window. "I don't take pleasure in that image. I just want you to know it happened." The calls started again, but this time they sounded different. No warmth. No, Brookie. Just panic dressed up as guilt. My mother called first. "Brooke, what have you done? Your father is devastated. He'll figure it out. He had 2 years to apologize. This isn't about an apology. This is about his future. It's about Grandma Ruth's money, Mom. Money she left to me." Silence. Then, "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." She hung up. The last sound I heard was a ragged breath. The kind that comes right before tears or fury. I couldn't tell which. Kyle called the next day. "You're really going to let Dad lose everything over a grudge?" "It's not a grudge, Kyle. It's a decision." "Same thing." "No, it's not. A grudge is wanting someone to suffer. A decision is choosing not to participate. I'm not punishing him. I'm just not helping him anymore." He didn't have a response for that. Aunt Patty called, crying. "Your grandmother would never have wanted this. Grandma Ruth left that money to me, Aunt Patty. Not to him. She chose me specifically." Patty went quiet. I could almost hear the thought forming. The realization that Ruth hadn't accidentally left me as beneficiary. She'd done it on purpose because she knew. The last call came from Aunt Brenda, the one who texted, "Your grandmother would be ashamed of you," the day before my wedding. This time her voice was smaller. "Did Ruth really leave it directly to you?" "She did. Not to Gary." A long silence. I could hear a clock ticking on her end. "I didn't know that." "You didn't ask. 2 years ago when you texted me, you didn't ask about that either." She hung up without saying goodbye. 3 weeks after the meeting that didn't happen, my father called one last time. It was late, almost 9. Nora was asleep. Marcus was watching baseball in the living room. I was loading the dishwasher. I looked at the screen. Gary Callahan. I picked up. "Brooke." "Hi, Dad." His voice was different. Stripped down. No charm, no nickname, no angle, just a man on the other end of a phone who sounded tired. "I made a mistake," he said. "I shouldn't have sent that text." "Which text? The one where you disowned me or the one where you asked me to sign?" Silence long enough that I heard the dishwasher cycle click behind me. "Both," he said. I leaned against the counter. Part of me, the 14-year-old part, the part that still remembered him helping me with algebra, wanted to say something soft, but the rest of me had spent 2 years becoming someone who didn't fold. "Then you understand why I can't do this. I'm your father, Brooke. You chose not to be. For 2 years, you chose Jolene's version of me over a 30-second phone call. You let Mom and Kyle and 3 aunts pile on without correcting a single one of them. And then you came back, not because you missed your daughter, but because you needed her signature. He didn't argue. He just breathed. I hope you figure out retirement, Dad. I really do. But I'm not your backup plan. Brooke. Good night. I hung up and dried my hands on the dish towel. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. Was that him? Yeah. You okay? I draped the towel over the oven handle, lined up the edges, and smoothed it flat. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. He nodded and went back to his game. I finished the dishes. Here's what happened to my father. I'm going to tell you because the story doesn't work without it. And because I promised you the truth, even the parts that don't feel good. Gary went back to the factory full-time. The position he took paid $19 an hour less than what he'd been making before he stepped down for early retirement. He was 58 years old, standing on a production floor for 10 hours a day, supervised by a 33-year-old with a clipboard and a management degree. His retirement at 60 was gone. His financial advisor told him 65 at minimum, maybe 67 depending on market performance and how long he could keep working. Jolene, who had expected a life of travel and freedom by the time she was 50, started doing the math on a single factory income, plus 4 kids who still needed things. Cody was 21 but working part-time. Amber was about to start community college. Tyler needed braces. Lily wanted a new phone. The argument started. Kyle could hear them through the walls. If you hadn't sent that text, Jolene said one night, according to Kyle, none of this would have happened. You told me to send it, Gary said. I told you to talk to her. You chose to burn the bridge. Interesting, isn't it? The same woman who whispered, I told you she'd stall, at my daughter's birthday party was now rewriting history at my father's dinner table. Jolene didn't want accountability. She wanted a version of events where she was the reasonable one and Gary was the hothead who ruined everything. I don't take pleasure in my father working factory floors at 58. I don't celebrate Jolene's disappointment, but I didn't create any of it. He sent the text. She lit the match. I just stopped putting out their fires. My mother felt it next. For years, Gary had been paying for Diane's health insurance through a COBRA continuation from his factory plan. It wasn't charity. It was the quiet arrangement they'd maintained since the divorce. She didn't ask for alimony. He covered her premiums. Everybody saved face. When the financial pressure hit, Gary cut it just like that. No warning, no conversation. Diane got a letter from the insurance company in October informing her that her coverage had been terminated. She was 55. She had high blood pressure, a thyroid condition, and no employer plan. Buying insurance on the marketplace at her age and health profile would cost her over $900 a month. The irony sat heavy even from a distance. My mother had sided with Gary over me, had told me to apologize, had chosen her financial arrangement over her own daughter, and now the man she'd protected had cut her loose the moment his own money got tight. She texted me 3 weeks after losing her coverage. I should have stood by you. 5 words. I read them sitting on the floor of Nora's nursery while my daughter slept in the crib above me. I read them 3 times. I didn't respond, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I wasn't ready. An apology delivered only after the consequences arrive isn't the same as an apology delivered when it costs something. My mother was sorry now because being wrong had finally become expensive. Marcus asked me that night if I was going to write back. Someday, I said. Maybe. But not today. Kyle was the one I didn't expect. When Gary tightened the belt, Kyle felt it immediately. The rent subsidy gone. The truck insurance Gary co-signed canceled. At 28, my little brother found himself standing in a studio apartment in Reynoldsburg, paying his own rent for the first time in his life, eating frozen burritos, and trying to figure out where his money went every month. He called me in December. Snow on the ground. Nora was crawling by then, pulling herself along the coffee table like a tiny, determined explorer. Brooke, I need to say something. Okay. I'm sorry. He didn't follow it with, but. He didn't explain it away or ask me to do something. He just let it sit there. I was a coward, he said. I knew what Dad did was wrong and I went along with it because it was easier, because he was paying my bills and I didn't want to rock the boat. That's not an excuse. It's just what happened. I was quiet for a long time. I appreciate that, Kyle. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not asking you to sign anything. I just wanted you to hear it from me. I hear it. And I'm sorry about what I said before your wedding. Way to ruin everything. That was garbage. I should have been there. Yeah, you should have. Another silence. I could hear him breathing. Somewhere in the background, a heater kicked on. Can I meet Nora sometime? He asked. Not with Dad. Not with anyone. Just me. I looked at my daughter who was currently trying to eat a sock. Give me some time, I said. Take all the time you need. He hung up and for the first time in 2.5 years, someone in my family had apologized without asking for something in return. The aunts disappeared. Patty, Linda, Brenda, the 3 women who texted me hours before my wedding to call me selfish, ungrateful, and a disappointment to my dead grandmother, went completely silent. No calls, no cards, no Hallmark sunrises about forgiveness. I didn't chase them. I didn't send a triumphant message or a "told you so" group text. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't need to. The truth traveled on its own. Gary had spent the previous year telling everyone, his bowling league, his neighbors, the guys at the VFW, about his early retirement plan. He'd talked about it the way some men talk about a boat they're going to buy someday soon, just around the corner. When someday turned into 7 more years on the factory floor, people asked questions and Gary, who was never good at lying under pressure, told them enough for the story to assemble itself. Bits and pieces leaked through church potlucks, grocery store conversations, and the small-town network that moves faster than Wi-Fi. By February, the aunt's friends at First Methodist knew the whole picture. Gary had disowned his daughter by text before her wedding, gone silent for 2 years, then came back only when he needed her signature on a financial document, and his daughter, the one they'd called selfish, said no. Aunt Brenda ran into Marcus's mother, Patricia, at the Kroger on Henderson Road. Patricia didn't say a word about it. She just smiled and asked how Brenda's azaleas were doing. Brenda, according to Patricia, went pale. I didn't orchestrate any of this. I didn't have to. When you build your story on a lie, you don't need someone to knock it down. You just need time. And eventually, even the people who piled on start to wonder if they were standing on the wrong side. 6 months after the unsigned document, here's where things stand. I still don't talk to my father. I don't hate him. I don't wish bad things on him. I just don't have a place for him in my life right now. Not until he can look at me and see his daughter instead of a signature line. Jolene and I have exchanged 0 words since Nora's birthday party. That feels about right. My mother and I are still in a pause. Her text, "I should have stood by you," sits in my phone like a seed I haven't decided whether to water. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But when I do, it'll be because I'm ready, not because she's pressured me into it. Kyle and I text sometimes, short messages, a photo of his new apartment, a question about a recipe, a link to a funny video. We're not close yet, but he's the only one who apologized without attaching a request, and that matters. The 3 aunts remain silent. I don't expect that to change. Nora is walking now. She toddles across the kitchen floor and grabs my leg when she wants to be picked up. She has no idea she has a grandfather she's never met. Someday I'll have to explain that, but not yet. The IRA sits in my name, untouched, growing. I haven't withdrawn a penny. Grandma Ruth's money is Nora's college fund now. That's what I decided. The woman who kept butterscotch candy on her counter and gave away tomatoes in paper bags will pay for her great-granddaughter's education. That feels right. Every Thursday, I still see Dr. Adler. Do you feel guilty? She asked me last week. No, I said. I feel sad that I had to choose, but I'd make the same choice again. People will tell you that family is everything. And maybe it is, when family treats you like you're something. My father didn't lose his retirement because I refused to sign a piece of paper. He lost it because he built his entire future on the assumption that I would always give in, that I would always say yes, that I would drive 2 hours, buy the gift, cut the names, rearrange my wedding, sign the document, because that's what Brooke does. I spent 29 years being the daughter who said yes. All it took was one no to find out what I was actually worth to them. And here's what I learned: when someone only reaches out because they need something from you, that's not love. That's an invoice. My father didn't want a relationship. He wanted access. Jolene didn't want reconciliation. She wanted the narrative to shift in her favor. My mother didn't want peace. She wanted her premium paid. And the aunts didn't want justice. They wanted to feel righteous without doing any homework. Every one of them had 2 years to pick up the phone and say, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Tell me what happened." Nobody did. They came back when the money ran out. Grandma Ruth knew. She sat in that recliner with an oxygen tube in her nose and squeezed my hand and told me not to let anyone claim what was mine. She didn't mean just the money. She meant my time, my peace, my right to say no without being punished for it. She left me that account because she knew that one day someone in this family would try to take something I wasn't willing to give. And she wanted me to have proof, not of my value, but of hers. She valued me enough to protect me from them. Today is a Sunday. I'm sitting on the back porch of our little house in Westerville. The yard is small, maybe 40 feet to the fence, but Nora treats it like a national park. She's out there right now, crouching over a patch of dirt, poking at something with a stick. She's got her father's focus and her great-grandmother's stubbornness. Marcus is at the grill flipping burgers, arguing with the charcoal. Richard and Patricia pulled up 20 minutes ago. Richard with a 6-pack of root beer. Patricia with a bowl of coleslaw she made from scratch. They're at the patio table watching Nora dig. This is my family now. Not the biggest, not the loudest, but every single person sitting in this yard chose to be here. Nobody was guilt. Nobody was bribed. Nobody showed up with a manila envelope. Nora runs over and grabs my knee with muddy fingers. "Up," she says. I lift her onto my lap. She smells like grass and sunscreen and something sticky I don't want to identify. "You know what Grandma Ruth used to say?" I whisper to her. She blinks at me. She used to say that "no" is a complete sentence. Nora has no idea what I'm talking about. She reaches for my iced tea. I move the glass and kiss her forehead. Someday I'll teach her what that means, that she's allowed to set a boundary and not apologize for it. That she can love someone and still say no. That silence when it's chosen is not the same as silence when it's forced. My name is Brooke Callahan. I'm 30 years old. I said 4 words and my father's retirement plan collapsed. But I didn't say them to punish him. I said them because for the first time in my life, I meant them. And that's the ending I chose for myself: peaceful, chosen, and finally, truly mine.